There is no charge for awesomeness.
G'day gang, welcome. Very important day today. It's day 18 and we have some decisions to make. By now, with a bit of luck, you've got a blog created, you've got some content out there on the net, and hopefully you're getting some traffic to that blog. With a little bit of luck, some of you may have even made a sale. But regardless of where you are, I now want to give you the filters, the decision points that you need to go through to decide what to do next. And what's very cool about this is you don't have to guess. There is no guessing in this game. You'll be able to tell, and the data will tell you, rather than you trying to make any emotional assessment. The lovely and talented Alison Reynolds referred to people getting Stockholm syndrome, to people who get so attached to a phrase that they can't let it go. I think that was very clever, and we don't want to see that. So we want to let the data tell us what to do so we can take our emotions out of it. So let's go to the presentation. So, as I said, what does the data tell you? We've got to take our emotions out of this. We've got to remove ourselves from that. And there's one characteristic that absolutely sets apart people who are successful in business, and it's not just online business, any business, compared to not, is their ability to realize a failed result has exactly the same weight as a positive result. No more and no less. And they realize that the more fail results they have, the more likely the next one is going to be a positive. And yes, probability nerds, I know what I'm saying is complete wrong and from a probability perspective, but you know what I mean. So let's go. But first, congratulations. If you've got this far, and let's just look back and look at what you've done. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. You've created content. You've done some pretty incredible and very detailed and comprehensive market research. You've published a blog, like your own website, and then you've gone and created a whole bunch of content and put that out on the net, and then you've used social bookmarking techniques to let everybody, and most importantly Google, know that you exist. Congratulations, that is a huge amount to do. And of course now you've gone through the hard yards of it. Imagine how much quicker you can do it the next time as well, which may come in handy. One other thing, and this is so important, and I see this every year it happens. A failed test is not a character assessment. Just because you have a test that has failed, like if the numbers after today just don't come up and you have to start again, just think of what you've saved yourself. Think about it. Most people, when they take a product or service online, have spent months or even horrifically years creating a product, locking themselves up in a room, typing away at a book, and so on, to emerge months and months later saying, here's my product, go and buy it, everybody. And then only to have the awful realization that there was never any traffic or market for that thing in the first place. So you've already saved yourself an enormous amount of time. If it ends up that whatever phrase you picked hasn't worked, that's fantastic, because you have saved yourself months of work and frustration. And yes, I know it's taken a while to do it the first time, but think about it. How long is it actually going to take you to do this again, let alone the third time or the fourth time? Every time you do it, you'll get quicker and quicker and quicker. And as I've said consistently, I reckon by the end of the challenge, people will be doing this in a little over 2 hours. It just takes a long time to teach. So, today, what's it all about? One word. And that word is traffic. We have to work out if you're getting traffic to your site. Are you getting enough traffic? Where's it coming from? And what do we need to do if you're not getting enough? Very simple. So the first thing we need to work out is, why do I obsess over the number 200? Why is that the magic number? Here's the thing. I know from my experience in terms of internet marketing and selling stuff online that the ability to sell one thing, that's right, one thing to every 200 people that visit your site is, well, bluntly, it's pretty poor. If everything else lines up, it's bad. But folks, I've made a lot of money being that bad at selling stuff to people. So I figure, why use good numbers? Let's use really bad numbers. So before we can make a judgment on whether something is working or not working, you need to have at least 200 unique visitors to your particular blog, to your site, the page, as we refer to in the classics, the money page, which is where you're trying to get people to buy something. In particular, of course, we're using either using an Amazon product or some sort of affiliate product that you're trying to sell. And so that's why I obsess over 200. There is a very big realization in this business to fiddle and play around with things too early and too quickly after you've only got 10, 20 or 30 results. You need to sit back and make sure you've got 200. Now we'll talk about this a little bit further on. So the big question is, do you have 200? If you've had 200 unique visitors, then go grab a coffee. I want to talk to everybody else just for a minute, and then come back to this lesson, because I want to talk about what you need to do next. Now, what I really want to do is talk to the people who don't have 200. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's not get emotional. Let's not take this as a personal failure. It's nothing that you have done. Let's just take a good, unemotional look at the numbers and let's see what's going on. Okay, so the first thing we need to check is, where are you ranked? This is very important, because depending on where you're ranked, you may not be getting any traffic simply because you're not high enough up in the search engines. So we've got to work that out. And again, Guru Bob has explained this, and he's done a whole video on checking out how to find your rankings. But what you need to do, and I've got an example up here, a poor old abused vintage electric guitar. You can see I've typed in the exact match, and actually, yes, I know SEO legends. What I've actually put there is phrase match. When you put a quotes around them, Google looks for the phrase match, not the exact match. So sorry about that. Just put it in there to make sure all those SEO boffins can, feel as though they're following me. And you can see here down at number 6, you can see the first mention of vintage electric guitars. And that is to a Web 2.0 site. So again, the traffic that comes off that has already got to go through at least one site. So got to keep that in mind. That is not going to deliver a fabulous amount of traffic at this point. Then, of course, you can see here, this is my broad match page. And you can see by broad match, I've just typed in vintage electric guitar in that order, no quotes or brackets. And you can see here that the first mention of me in broad match is number 10, which is pretty good, really, for whatever it has been, a week or so on since we've had it. And you can see the actual blog there at the bottom is actually at number 32. And that's been slowly but surely creeping up. We haven't had some help from some lovely people, but hey, what can you do? But yeah, slowly but surely it's moving up, so that's great. So I wouldn't expect, based on those rankings, to get a huge amount of numbers. Now, there's a way you can also check this, and we actually talked about this way back on day 2 or day 3, and I'll mention it again because it's such an important concept. You can see here, and I've broken it down for you, the 3 different types of match. There's broad match, phrase match, and exact match. Let's have a look at broad match. You can see here the broad match in July, the approximate search volume was 12,100. So even if you did the most basic of calculations and just divided that by days of the month, there's a good decent amount of traffic. So I would expect that if we were to rank for number 1 in that particular month, then we'd be looking at I'd like to think that over the course of a month, remember we're talking months, usually we talk days, but I'm talking months just for this purpose, 4,000, 5,000, maybe 6,000 people. Market Samurai gives you an estimation based on that, and a whole bunch of other factors as well. That's what the SEOT score is. Now, if we look at phrase match, hang on a second, look at this. For the phrase match, there was only 880 searches, a lot less, because a lot of people don't use those quotes, right? So all of a sudden, think about this. If you take 880, you divide it by, what is that? Divide it by 30 days of the month, 31 days. All of a sudden, we're talking about a lot less traffic. And then you think about, well, where were we? We were number 6. So all of a sudden, if you think about that in terms of percentages, what, number one gets about 41%, and then it goes dramatically downhill from there. We'd expect only 2 or 3% of that traffic, which is not necessarily a lot. So this is why it's so important for you to understand where you're at. Now, the most beautiful combination you can have is where your broad match and your phrase match are pretty close, because then you can get something which is speed. Like you can get a lot of traffic quickly, because when you get both of those matching, then that is a beautiful, beautiful combination. So I just wanted to put that up there just so you can see the difference. And you can see exact match, where it's used that specific phrase, 320. Not a lot of traffic at all. Okay, but remember, does that mean the vintage electric guitar is not a good phrase? No, it's a great phrase, as we explained to you in day 2. It's just time. Okay, it needs time. It's like a good wine, it needs to mature, because the broad match traffic is excellent. So we have to have a bit of patience. So, question: where are you ranked for your broad match and your phrase match? Because if you don't know that, then you're making an emotional decision. Because if you work out that, oh, hang on, I'm pretty well ranked for my phrase match, and you use go to Google or wherever you happen to go and put that together, hey, fine. Or if you go to broad match and you work out that, hang on, oh yeah, okay, I'm only ranked at number 20, you need to put more work into your ranking. And how do you do that? We're going to show you a whole bunch of strategies in the last week of the 30-day challenge, but we've already shown you a whole bunch, and you can work on those. You can work on your social bookmarking to bring up your ranking. And again, what you also might find is how resilient your remember we did the competition analysis day 3? You'll see how resilient that competition analysis is. Are you number 1? This is really important, because if you do happen to be number 1 in broad match and you have the situation where you're not getting traffic to your blog, well, that's a problem. But it's not a failure, it's not a character assessment. It just means that there's just not the traffic there, because no data source, including Google's own, is infallible. This is why we test, and it's really important for you to understand that. It just may not work out, I'm sorry, but if it's number 1 in broad match and you're just not getting the traffic, well, maybe it's just not going to get the traffic. But never fear, because we've got you back here too as well, because in the next few days we're going to be showing you strategies to what you can do with the traffic that you're getting. Because let's face it, if you leave it there now and just do the occasional bookmarking and backlinking, you'll probably keep that number 1 spot. And so you will get any traffic that you need. And this is very important too, I might add, remember, if we're talking about small businesses, and we're talking about small business owners who are trying to get traffic from the internet and they want to cover their particular area, 200 a day may mean nothing to you. It doesn't matter, as long as you're covered, so that when somebody does want to do house painting in your particular area, you're there and you're number 1 and you're ready to catch whatever traffic is needed. If you had 200 requests for quotes a day, you'd go mental anyway. Be nice mental, but you go mental. Now, what happens if you're not number 1? Well, depending on the traffic, you may have 200 unique visitors. Remember, I asked you first to analyse how many unique visitors, and if you had 200, move on, forget what I just said. I'm talking to people now who haven't yet got 200, because we're trying to use, via diagnosis, an unemotional look at the numbers to see why it's not happening. If you're not number 1 in your phrase match or your broad match, then you need to work to get that ranking up. And if you're doing everything you can and you just can't budge that ranking, again, it's decision day. You may have to have a look and try something else. Try a different phrase, use a different phrase on the blog. Go back, have a look at your numbers. By doing this, and this is the only way, folks, you're going to do it, by doing this over and over again, you'll get good at it. It just takes practice, and you'll see exactly what's going on. And then that's why I love Market Samurai, because with Samurai you'll start to get a real feel. Once you've taken action to do it, you'll get a real feel for the data, and you'll start to really understand what these numbers mean. And the only way you're going to do that is by taking action. Okay, hopefully, if you've had 200 unique visitors, welcome back. Now we want to ask a few other questions just to clarify things. The first one, and so many people forget this one, is when traffic by itself is incomplete. It's missing a phrase. It's like asking how fast you're going and somebody saying 100 kilometers or 60 miles. That's not an answer, 60 miles. Is that 60 miles per minute, 60 miles per second, or, as we would normally understand it, 60 miles per hour? Do you see what I mean? There's a time factor. And traffic is also, like speed, it requires two elements for you to really understand it. There's the actual traffic itself, and then how long did it take? So how long does it take to get to traffic? And this is where you go into your Google Analytics and have a look. How much traffic every day you're getting? I'd like to see, for a decent phrase, as I say, if you can get that up to the 200 a day, why is that good? Because I'd like to think you'd be able to sell something every single day off your blog. That's what I'd like to see. That's our ultimate goal here. You may have a series of blogs which all collectively bring you the 200 people a day, but that's what we want to try build here. We want to build that 200 a day. So that's why we need to look at it. Now, for the purposes of the challenge, it may happen over 2, 3, 4 days. Doesn't matter, as long as you sell something, as long as you make your dollar. But what I do want you to consider for the long term is how long did it take you to get those 200 people. It's an important factor, and I just want you to take notice of it. Now, of course, if you did get the 200, here's the most important question of all. Did you sell anything? If you did, fantastic. We're done. Take the rest of the time off. Okay, I'm slightly kidding. Don't do that. We've got a whole new traffic method coming up to teach you in just a couple of days. It's going to be hot and you're going to love it. So if you sell anything, great, we're on the right track. If you didn't sell anything, at this point in time, remember, way back, we asked you to look for 2 products. Why not, if you're getting the traffic, let's do a test. Let's swap in the other affiliate product. Let's swap that in and let's see how that goes. So you can do that, but please make sure, wait till you've had at least 200 unique visitors. Have a look at your blog, which has got the thing that we want to sell. There is one other thing you can do, and this is one of my favorite things. In your next blog post, when you're testing, let's do and I don't want to freak people out, it's very, very simple. Just follow the steps. I'm not going to give you the exact wording, because if I do, everybody will use that and then it won't be effective. Just do a nice little soft sell, and it goes something like this. You have your phrase and so on. Looking for vintage electric guitars. How valuable is my vintage electric guitar? And you want to cover off 3 points, okay? You want it to, and it's a story. You're telling a story, and the story is, I've been looking around everywhere to get really decent information on vintage electric guitar prices, and I try to go to there's so-called a whole bunch of free sites on the internet, and it took me ages to find something. I finally actually had a look at Amazon and found that there was this fantastic price guide that was really like an industry bible, and I decided to buy that, and boy, what a time saver. Everything there, all the vintage electric guitars, it was fantastic. If you guys are interested in that book, check it out here and put in your link to that your affiliate thing. Something as simple as that. You may want to try a blog post like that. That's the other little trick that you may want to try now. So let me leave you with this. A failed test is not a character assessment. This is so important. If it hasn't worked out and you need to go back to the drawing board, it's no big deal. It's fantastic news, because you've just saved yourself an enormous amount of time. So with that, I'll speak to you again tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. Take the emotions out of it. It's just data, and we need to make decisions based on information and data, not on emotions or guesses. And that's the beauty of this business, because it makes it much easier to go forward. So we'll speak to you soon. In fact, I'll speak to you tomorrow. Oh, one more thing just before I forget. If you're watching this on YouTube, you might notice that the quality is not bad. We've worked pretty hard to make it look pretty good, But if you want crystal clear and absolutely super sharp video, then if you go to 30daychallenge.com, you can actually download all of the high definition, high resolution videos of this series, so you can really get those screenshots and make them look pristine. You can also download them for your iPhone or your iPod or whatever media player that you happen to have as well. We also have really handy cliff notes and transcripts of each of the lessons, and they appear a day or so after the actual lesson goes up. So there's a huge amount of information and an awesome forum where there are literally thousands of people just like you going through the challenge and helping each other out. So it's a really good idea to check out everything that's available at 30daychallenge.com. All right, we'll speak soon.
There is no charge for awesomeness.